My mother used to work at a hotel in Washington, D.C. back in the 1990s. She worked as maid and housekeeper since she needed money because she was a refugee from Vietnam. Even though she didn't know much English at the time, she knew enough to get by at her job. All the other staff and hotel guests loved her because of how sweet she was. Because of this, anytime high-profile guests like the Backstreet Boys would stay at the hotel, the manager always sent my mom to clean the room. Anyways, one day, a guest came, who will we refer to him as Mr. Doe, because I don't know his real name. He checked into their most expensive suite. As usual, the manager told my mom to go take care of his room. As she got there was a "Do Not Disturb" sign. So, she told the manager she would come back later. What was weird was that no one was ever allowed in his room. The man stayed there for over a month, and not one time did he let a staff come in to clean. However, he paid a lot, and he gave a warm welcome every time he passed a staff member, so no one paid him any attention. Then, one day, people didn't see him anymore, so they assumed he checked out, though the receptionist had no account of this. Since it had been so long since the room was cleaned, the manager told my mum to go check it out and try to clean up what she could. Also, the "Do Not Disturb" sign wasn't on the door anymore. As she got to the floor and unlocked the door to the room, a disturbing smell hit her. She couldn't figure out what it was, but she continued to survey the room. It was disgustingly messy. Her words were that it looked like someone had thrown a rave, even though no other guests seemed to have ever gone into the room besides Mr. Doe. It had looked like the man had deserted the place without telling anyone. Anyways, my mum was still shocked by the smell, so she tried to track it down. As she followed the smell, she could tell it was coming from the hotel room closet. When she opened the closet, there was nothing but a cardboard box on the ground from which the smell was coming. In the moment from being a housekeeper, my mother's first instinct was to open the box to see what it was and clean or throw it out. When she opened the box, what she saw scarred her to this day. It was the decomposing head of a young woman. My mother immediately screamed and got out of there, where she fainted in the elevator. Once she woke up, cops were everywhere, and the hotel was like a CSI scene. The manager told her that Mr. Doe wasn't his real name, and he used a fake credit card to check in. The head of the woman was identified to be an escort. I don't know much more and any nitty-gritty details, but I'm sure one can look it up on the internet for more information. Needless to say, my mum quit that day. This one happened to my parents more than 20 years ago now. Both of them were driving out to Death Valley to a hotel for a weekend in the wintertime, and they had left late in the day and were going to arrive at the hotel at night. The hotel was about 30 minutes outside of the actual Death Valley town center, and when they finally found the place, it was completely abandoned. My mum gets spooked easily and didn't want to go and look, but my dad's into that sort of things and got out of the car. Right after he walks around the back of the building to look around, a man approaches my mother's side of the car. He claims his motorcycle broke down and that he delivers newspapers to Death Valley. My mum looks around, sees no motorcycle anywhere, and this hotel had nothing near it, not one building. This guy was begging my mum to come get the newspapers and take them to a hotel in town. Otherwise, he'd lose his job. He had the stack in his hands and wanted her to open the door so that he could give them to her. My mum's getting creepy vibes from this guy now and refuses, locks all the doors and tells him to go away. He continues to beg. Finally, my dad comes around the corner. The guy panics a bit and just hands them over to my dad quickly and leaves. They drive off and they spot the guy start walking off into the desert. They finally get to the hotel to deliver the papers and end up booking a room there. When they hand over the newspapers, the lady at the desk tells them they don't get any newspapers delivered to the hotel. My parents open up the stack and look at the front page. These are newspapers from 1954. I am a hotel bartender. It was a quiet evening, and a distraught-looking guy came to the bar and ordered a shot and a beer. I was catching some weird vibes. To lighten the mood, I tried to drum up some light-hearted conversation. The man tried to talk but couldn't, so I asked him if everything was all right. He said no. I asked him if anything was wrong and if there was anything I could do to help. Also, I offered him some food on the house. He declined, and he proceeded to tell me the escort he hired slit her wrists and is now a lifeless body in his room's bathtub. I jumped back and decided to call the cops right away. After calling 911, I ran back to the bar to find the man slumped on the bar. He was not moving. I ran over to check on him, and his pulse is weak and he is pale and cold. The police and medics arrived and cleaned up the mess. The man died. A note written by the guy was found in the room by another guest a few days later. No one from the police or hotel cleaners found it on the day of the incident. In the note, he said wanted to feel a woman's touch one more time before he gulped a ton of pills. It was messed up. I got a week off work to deal with it and was shocked when I came back to find everything normal. It's like nothing happened. I work the front desk. About an hour after checking a guest in, she came back downstairs asking to be moved. She happened to be in a room that connected to another room. After getting settled in, she said she started to hear noises coming from the other room. This wasn't a concern until the other people tried to open her connecting door from their side. The gap between her door and the door frame was just wide enough to see just a sliver into the other room. So, when she went over to tell the other person to stop, curiosity got the best of her. She peeked through and saw a man staring at her from the other side. She told him to cut it out, and he just stood there at the door. He even tried opening the handle every once in a while. Not wanting to deal with it anymore, she came down and requested to be moved away from this creepy person. It's understandable. So I checked the computer and noticed that there is no guest registered in that room. It's either someone at the desk goofed and didn't complete the check-in, or someone is in the hotel that shouldn't be. No one answered when I called the room, so I sent security up. He called from the room saying that no one was in there. Our engineer happened to be at the front desk when I was discussing all this with another agent. He mentioned that he had to go into that room to fix something. Mystery solved, I thought. He was in there fixing the door, making a racket, and spooking this poor woman. Except he was never able to get into the room because the door lock wasn't working at the time. He had a master key card, but it didn't work too. We had no idea why it started working again for security. We transferred the woman to another room. Over the course of the night, nothing else happened, and no mystery man was ever found. The guest was a regular, so I didn't think she was screwing with us. Maybe it was nothing, or who knows. Still pretty creepy at the time. When I was 15, my family went for a trip to a hill station named Shimla in India. We booked a suite in a hotel in which the master bedroom had a glass platform. That platform was about 8 by 8 feet, sticking about 2 feet outside the room. It's overlooking the valleys and hills which were hundreds of feet below us. Being an adventurous kid, I decided to sleep on the platform while my dad slept on the bed. My mother and sister were in another bedroom. So, at around 1 a.m., I was sleeping on my side facing the glass, which was about 3 inches from my face. Suddenly my eyes opened and I saw a woman looking at me intently from outside the glass. I still remember clearly her face was totally pale and eyes dark with black hair and some dark clothes on the body. I can only explain her gaze as of a lion before it jumps in to snag its prey. It took me 3 to 4 seconds to realize where I am and that this is not some human looking through a window, but some entity floating outside my room. I've had sleep paralysis, so I knew how it felt and knew I was fully awake that time. I shouted as loud as I could and pushed myself back so hard from the glass that I ended up hitting the other end of the room. My dad woke up and turned all lights on, but there was no one to be seen now. That was the last time I ever slept with my window shades open in life. It's been more than 10 years since the incident, but those eyes terrify me to this day. I used to be a security guard on a campus that was a military fort since the revolution. It was updated throughout the years and was last used in World War II. The campus was then bristling with artillery and concrete bunkers, as well as many brick and mortar buildings. When it became a college campus, the barracks, hospital, officers' house, everything was converted to classrooms and dorms. There was one building on campus, a hotel where students learned bartending and hotel services. It was infamous for being haunted. My shift was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Starting at midnight, the last co-worker left, and I had the entire campus to myself. My job was to make sure everything was locked and lights were off, and to scare off any drunks or potheads trying to get into the old concrete bunkers. As for the hotel, it rarely had living guests. I would go through the building and turn off all the lights, only to turn around an hour later and see a light on again. I would stand in the hotel lobby after patrolling and confirming I was alone, and hear things moving on the floor above me. I heard a chain dragging across the room above me, then a distant scream. One night, I had another officer with me for once. As we were talking in the lobby, the temperature dropped and we heard a little girl giggling. In the basement, I would see shadows dart across the conference room. However, the biggest thing that made me nope out was when I was in the lobby and looked up the staircase. I saw a woman's legs with black shoes walk from the right to left on the next floor up. She went straight through a wall. I worked in a motel when I was 18 years old. I was at the front desk not working when the housekeeping guy called me to check something out in a room that was being cleaned. I go up there and the housekeeping guy is standing in the middle of the room, pointing up to the ceiling. There was a set of bare footprints across the ceiling, which is at least 10 feet high. It's as if someone was walking upside down from the left side of the room to the right. There's no way he jumped that high upside down and left no prints on the walls either. Also, the guest had left a single bullet on the bed. The same housekeeping guy called my attention to the next room a couple of days later. He pointed up and I saw footprints on the ceiling again. It looked like the prints continued from the previous room and headed to the edge of the motel. That was pretty creepy, but nothing else happened after that, thankfully. I'm glad that you're here with us today. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy a good scare. As always, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.